welcome all. Yes, 23rd episode. So, really, let's get underway and welcome the Aussie Footy Show, the BJ Show Footy Show. And before we really get into this, and it's been a long time being joining one room and being back the old way of doing it, and sometimes it's good to do this. So, let's drive in. Aiden, welcome.
Thank you very much. How good is it to be back in the studio again?
Oh, mate, it's fantastic. And yes, it's been a long time, and I think it's work from you and I doing our own episodes to bring up that. And thank you all. Alright, let's get on with the show. So before we get started now, hope you do actually enjoy the reviews and the results from an 18. Then went into previews. Then we went to result in one round because it was something a bit different. Then we went previews in round 19. So what do you think of that? I think it was alright, but we're not going to do that. We're going back where we were to round 19 results to round 20 previews. So we're going to take in turns that we have done, and I'll let Aiden, I'll let you share what has been an interesting round of football and some big upsets. And I've got to say, I was happy for one team, and there's a few upsets in my opinion very, very soon. So we're going to share some from Thursday night. I'll let you take the Bombers and the Giants game.
Alright, Ben, thank you very much. Thursday night footy, round 19. We are at Marvel Stadium, Essendon and the GWS Giants, and this game was really one-sided from the beginning. Essendon tried to stay in the contest as much as they could, but GWS were far, far the better side in the end. We have a look at our final score quickly for this one on the Thursday night. Our final score is Essendon 7-14-56, GWS 16-8-104. So GWS very, very dominant. We know Essendon already has a lot of players unavailable through injury, through suspensions, and through other long-term injuries as well. A big long-term injury list down at Windy Hill for the Bombers, but GWS looking very strong at this time of year. They need to be. That race for the top 8 is tightening up for them. They will need to continue to get wins on the board. This game, as I said, all GWS from the very start blew them away from halfway through the second quarter, where they kicked 6 goals. Essendon only won in that second quarter, and then a little bit more of an even game through the rest of it, but GWS still edging ahead in the end there. So big win for the Giants in this one against the Bombers. We'll go to my player of the game now, and there really is only one winner for this, and it's Tom Green from GWS. 110 AFL fantasy, 1 goal, 30 touches, 29 kicks, 11 handballs, 4 marks, and 3 tackles.
Yeah, so game 1, and why do we have the, I think you can't have 20,000 on a Thursday night, and this is prime time. Essendon, in my opinion, should not get prime time, and they are, because they did play really well like a few years ago, but this is, like Ada mentioned, a lot of injuries and suspension and all that, but my thoughts, look, I'm going to make this more shorter. Well done to GWS Giants. The talent of, the former Bomber forward, Jake Stringer, absolute give it all to his former team. And I gotta say, there was some really, I think they're a lot better, they're more prepared, and they want to get back in that top 8 GWS, and I'm hoping they'll do another win on the road. They want to get that big percent, and they definitely got that percentage. Look, GWS will take on their rivals in Sydney, derby down at home, and will be the 31st Sydney Derby. So it will be interesting at ENGIE Stadium. Let's get that big crowd to that stadium. Support your team. Essendon will take on the Bulldogs, Western Bulldogs, which will be another challenge. Look at Marble Stadium. So we'll share all that. Let's just get part of the game. Yep, same as you, Aiden. Tom Green, absolute enjoyment of it. He included 30 disposals, 4 marks, 3 tackles, 1 goal, 110 AFL fantasy, 58% defensive half, 42% of forward half, 4 goal assists, 8 score involvements, 379 metres game. So well done to another midfield star from Tom Green from the GWS Giants. Alright, game 2, I will continue on, and Aiden, I'll let you share after my thoughts. So when they head to Queensland at the Gutto for Brisbane, and the 29,000 plus pack for this game, and thought this should be the game of the round, very close to my thoughts, and fortunately it was just out of it. So look, I think Brisbane, before we get to that part, but 12-14-86, 12-4-76, 10 points. So the Western Bulldogs really got into this game, and I've got to say right now it should have been close all game. Efforts to Western Bulldogs, knowing how important this has to be, especially a win at the Gala, and unfortunately did not get the job done. 10 points, pretty good effort. With good accuracy as well. Well done, Brisbane, claiming the win, 10-point win, take the win over. And so like Western Bulldogs trying to get back into the top 8, and wins are not going. You gotta win these games to make finals, and it's from 9th to about 6th or 5th on the AFL ladder. It's so close, but it's all work with percentage. That's how it all works. So it isn't easy to travel to Brisbane and to win, and that's where the example of Charlie Cameron, Take Me Road, Country Road, the fans are absolutely loud, I can hear on telly, but fortunately just got 1 goal, so I'll take that as well. Another nice win by Brisbane, put in 2nd place, so for after 19th, they don't have a very high percentage, but they look nicely in 2nd place under the Adelaide's close. We'll share very soon. I really think, don't overrate Brisbane. It wasn't an overly easy tip to go, but Brisbane played well. They played a good style of football at the gutter, and they continue since they won their premiership. They do tag on Gold Coast at People's First, which will be the 29th Q Class, which will be a very interesting. Lots of rivals and old style football games in round 20. I can't wait to share with you all. I don't like the time frames of it. Means no one has free tier to watch these games, but if they follow those teams in state. But Western Bulldogs will share that, like I mentioned, they take on Essendon and be back at Marble Stadium, so they'll be happy with that. Player of the game, Josh Dunkley from Brisbane, 28 disposals, 2 marks, 15 tackles, just dominates with that pressure, with 59% defensive half, 41% forward half, 4 score involvements, and a 230 metres gain. So well done. Another great performance from the Brisbane midfield star, Josh Dunkley. All right, Aiden, over to you.
Thank you for that, Ben. So before we get into Brisbane, let's have a chat about the Western Bulldogs. I think coming up to Brisbane playing a brand of football that suggested that they're definitely in the mix for the finals. They just need results to go their way, and they are running out of opportunities to control their destiny. As you said, Ben, next week, Q Clash at the Gold Coast, so possibly a win for Gold Coast there. Bulldogs looking to control their destiny. Fremantle now 2 games clear of them. Gold Coast only a game clear, but also have that make-up game against Essendon that was cancelled in opening round. So realistically, Gold Coast a game and a half ahead of Western Bulldogs at this point. But we're going to talk about scoreboard pressure here, because that's the real key for this game. As we look at the final scores of 12-14, 86 to Brisbane versus 12-4, 76 to the Doggies. So that's the 10 points margin for the game there. But it's the way that Brisbane do it. It's the way that Brisbane go about it. They get those 10 points. They're not winning by goals. They're winning by points. And that's their game style. It's just hack anything on goal. Anything could go through. It's lottery numbers, basically. If you're in the lotto, you've got a chance to win the lotto. So that's what they're going with at Brisbane, and it works again against an opposition who just can't sustain any forward pressure and keep the ball in their forward half or get any momentum against them for long stretches over the game. Again, we saw it work in their favour this week. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago when they played GWS working against them. This week against the Western Bulldogs, it does come up well for them. So Brisbane, right now, big win this week over Western Bulldogs at home. They'll go to Gold Coast next week, and they're currently second on the ladder, but with a little thing that we're going to talk about a little bit later in this round, how the ladder has shifted to keep that first place race wide open between a couple of teams that we're going to talk about. Well done to Brisbane on this one. We're going to go to my player of the game now, which I think, Ben, you're going to be surprised by this one. So my player of the game for Brisbane versus Western Bulldogs is Will Ashcroft from Brisbane. Will Ashcroft, 112 AFL Fantasy 3 goals, 26 touches, 15 kicks, 11 handballs, 2 marks, and 5 tackles. Now, I've talked about triple doubles a little bit over this season. We have 3 triple doubles in this game. We have 3 BJ Show triple doubles in this game, so I'm going to get to them now. So the first one, as you said, Ben, the first one was Josh Dunkley from Brisbane, who had 28 touches with a split of 12 kicks, 16 handballs, along with the 15 tackles. And then we have 2 triple doubles coming from the Western Bulldogs. So the first of those is the Marcus Bontempelli, 24 touches, 13 kicks, 11 handballs, 10 tackles. And we also also have Tom Liberatore, 23 touches, 12 kicks, 11 handballs, and 10 tackles.
Yeah, amazing of that. And I think in this podcast, I think it's good to have, yes, you have that in basketball. It's common basketball, but for Aussie Bull stacks, that's even a plus thing that no one even knows. Why do you say that? Well, guess what? It's another game, it's another sport. So thank you, Aidan, and hopefully you do continue to the end of the season into the new year. So moving on to Super Saturday football, 4 games to share, and my goodness, there's some entertainment, very disappointing, pretty happy teams. And this, I've got to say, I'm actually happy this team has won. It wasn't a pretty easy step, but very similar, like, well, I'm going to say Essendon, same ground, same night, different month, different date. So, and I tell you right now, my brother was very happy with this team. So, well, yeah, it's 2 afternoons, 2 Saturday nights. Look, Aidan, I'll let you share game 3. Game 1, Port Adelaide, Hawthorn versus Port Adelaide in Launceston.
Thank you very much. Here we go. A rainy, drizzly, windy afternoon down in Palawa country in Tasmania at Launceston University of Tasmania Stadium for Hawthorn versus Port Adelaide. And this game looked very, very close at half-time. It looked very even through that first half. The rain definitely equalising for Port Adelaide against the power and the dominance of Hawthorn. But in the end, the better team won clearly in the end. They put the foot down in that third quarter and in that last quarter as well. That back end second half of the game really ran away with it for Hawthorn. And this is, kind of a measuring stick moment for not just Hawthorn, but also for Port Adelaide. I think that Hawthorn, they realise that they can play in any weather now. The Mosquito Fleet, really in the game here. Jake Ginnivan has a lot of fun in these kind of games, as well as the other small forwards they've got as well. Port Adelaide, though, again, this is kind of the weather that I think Port Adelaide like as well. I think it's a weather that Port Adelaide have got some well-documented history with when it's windy and it's rainy. And, for them to really just stop at half-time, it just shows that Hawthorn just hit that switch and went, we're just going to go and play footy. We know what the weather's like and we can take it now. This is our weather as well now. Port Adelaide, move over. We are the new kings of the wet. And in Tasmania, as I always say, Hawthorn winning by a Tasmania. Our final score was Hawthorn 13-9-87, Port Adelaide 7-7-49 in this game. As I said, very, very even first quarter, but after half-time, Hawthorn take over. They tack on 7 goals to 3 in the second half. And, even for a windy, wet day like that, that's pretty big achievement, winning by 38 points in that kind of weather. It really seems more like a 60-70 point win given the conditions. But we go to my player of the game for this one. And I'm going to have to go with Dylan Moore from Hawthorn. 143 AFL fantasy, 2 goals, 32 touches, 25 kicks, 7 handballs, 2 marks, and 9 tackles. So, Ben, that is my wrap of Hawthorn versus Port Adelaide.
Thank you. Yeah, so windy, wet, and it's very heavy down in Launceston at UTAS, known for University of Tasmania Stadium. I've been there, an amazing stadium it is for when we did Nationals back in 2022. So moving on, yeah, pretty good crowd, 12,772, and for Hawthorn and first Port Adelaide. And, a really nice win by Hawthorn. Got their revenge back, and I went to the Hawthorn Port Adelaide gather round, so very nice, clear conditions there. Port Adelaide won it from the ghetto. So I tell you right now, a very different win, and Hawthorn got the win back. 13-9-87, 7-7-49. So look, another win in Launceston over Port Adelaide by Hawthorn, known as the Tasmanian. It's common for that for Hawthorn, and when the Devils come in, it's going to be, don't know who Hawthorn are going to be known for when they play in Tasmania. Really quite interesting, but he will still say whatever it is. So, look, efforts to Port Adelaide go to Launceston and win with conditions, it's not easy. And they, like Aidan's mentioned, they actually don't mind playing at conditions. And they did wet the stacks as well, that Port Adelaide were in that game at quarter time and a bit in the second, but the third quarter was just all Hawthorn. And let's show what we are made of. We're better than Port Adelaide, and, it worked for them. But yes, Port Adelaide, brand new coach in the new season and, you know, hopefully to bring some joy and finish the season. I don't know when this will be announced, but hopefully it'll be a good showdown. Hopefully we'll bring some pressure, but I don't think it'll be a really good challenge. Yes, why go I say Port Adelaide getting challenged to the LA Crows in Showdown 54. Yeah, well, Hawthorn tag on Carlton on Thursday night, prior time MCG. That'll be quite an interesting game. So to wrap this up, making a shot, player of the game, Dylan Moore, oh my goodness, Aiden, you read my mind, 32 disposals, 2 marks, 9 tackles, 2 goals, 143 AFL Fanset T, 27% defensive half, 73% forward half, 1 goal assist, 7 score involvement, and a 523 metres game. So another great Dylan Moore performance from the Hawthorn forward midfield star, and I gotta say, we'll drive into game 4, so we're heading to Sydney, SCG for Sydney, North Melbourne, and final score, well done to Sydney, and also made several times, and a 31-point victory. Gotta say, Sydney need better wins than that. Win's a win, but if you want to play finals, get that percentage up high and really put on the skis of want to finish that 8th spot. But 12, 84, 7, 11, 53, and you know, another win fighting for that finals. And look, another good challenge for North Melbourne, not having their ruck star against a team like Sydney, head to Sydney, only 31-point loss, so defeat. So that's pretty good effort from North Melbourne point of view. But look, Sydney are finding the ways to play in September. Can they do it this stage? We'll find out very later in the season. Yes, they take on their rivals of GWS Giants, which of both teams are pretty in good form, more to GWS Giants. And North Melbourne take on Geelong at Marble. It may be another challenge by North Melbourne, but if North Melbourne bring that pressure, a really good effort, you never know what can happen with Geelong, because Geelong are not fans at Marble, but teams like St Kilda did so well in early in the year. Can North Melbourne do the same? If North Melbourne bring that ball pressure, you're fine. It'll be a good challenge by taking on a team that's going to be up there like Geelong. A crowd of this game was 31,909 at the SCG, which is a pretty good effort. A month sold out crowd at the SCG. Even Sydney are not playing totally great in a way. They are finding, hopefully, to bring some Sydney magic and Swans magic. And yeah, so, well, to end this, let's go straight off the part of the game. Isaac Heeney were another game performance of 34 disposals, 8 marks, 5 tackles, 5 goals, 166 AFL Fantasy, 49% defensive half, 51% forward half, 1 goal assist, 11 score involvements, and a 584 metres game. Isaac Heeney, your star, with those midfield moments. Well done, Aiden. Over to you for this game with the Swans and the Roos.
All right, thank you very much, Ben. Let's have a look at it, and I think I want to highlight the score worm in this one. I think that really tells how big of an impact not having Christian Cherry available is for North Melbourne, because you know they were in this game at quarter time. They got it early in the second quarter. They got it back to around even, and then Sydney blew them away. And I think, you know, we're saying that Christian Cherry is, you know, the new premier ruck of the AFL, or the crown prince in waiting for the fall off of Max Gawn to be the new premier ruck of the AFL, then it just really shows. So I think if he's available, I think that North keep that game a lot closer and probably could steal it at the end if they have Tristan Cherry available. Unfortunately, they don't. They don't have that elite ruck there to win the game. This is where Sydney won the game. This is where Isaac Heeney won the game, was because he was able to get clearances. He was able to dominate at centre bounce. He was able to dominate at stoppage, and that it just shows the difference between, you know, Sydney having an elite midfielder and North not having their elite ruck. So Sydney a great reader, Heeney a great reader, a great mover of the football as well. So I think just him, this may be, and I'm going to say this may be, looking at Sydney and looking at Isaac Heeney now, Isaac Heeney's performance may be one of the single greatest AFL games ever played. I'm not caring about fantasy stats. I'm not caring about Supercoach, Dream Team, any of that stuff. I'm talking about actual practical and theoretical football. This may have been the greatest game, and he's my reigning BJ Show Player of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. So my guy coming in, playing probably one of the greatest games in the history of VFL AFL for a single player in one game. We're going to have a look at his numbers now. It was really a bit ridiculous when you look at it. As I said, I'm not worried about the fantasy points to describe this one, but it was 166 AFL fantasy. 5 goals. Playing out of the midfield, 5 goals is ridiculous in itself. 34 touches, 22 kicks, 12 handballs, 8 marks, 5 tackles, and 13 clearances as well. Just total domination of the stoppage, total ability, as well as, just being able to get the ball. He's just got great eyes, knows where to put the footy when he finds somebody open, so can lead them into the space with a kick, can target him and drop it short for him to run onto. He's got all the tools you need. And it's just unfortunate Sydney haven't been able to do much since they had that big injury run at the start of the year, really fell out of contention. I think this is showing what Sydney really can do. I think that they're a much better side than this year's showing. I think even though they are closing, I think they'd still finish short come the end of the year. But, it's raining. I think that, this single performance just sort of validates everything about Sydney over the last couple of years, and kind of validates that they're not a team who are going away. I think it just shows that they've had an injury struggle at the start of the year. It carried over through the first half, come out the bye, and they've played a really good second half. So they are just absolutely playing a really well crafted brand of footy still, much stronger in the second half, and there's no reason why they can't contend again next year. But as I said, player of the game, Isaac Heeney.
Yeah, so absolutely, Stacey up there for the best and fairest. He's in the mix. So your legend, doesn't have to be the top 4 best player of the year. It can be anyone in the AFL. Doesn't have to be the weakest team to be a best star. So moving forward into evening football, and we've got to say we got some entertainment one way or another. There was one way and there was another. We're heading to Saturday night football. The first one's at the MCG, so this will be quite interesting, Aidan. I'll let you share that one and I'll do it as well. Then we'll do West Coast and Richmond as well. So here we go, Aidan. I'll let you share the mighty Blues and the Demons at the MCG.
Yep, the first game of Round 19's Saturday night doubleheader was one for the football historians, one for the football purists. Carlton and Melbourne, a game that goes back to the early days of not just the AFL, but the very beginnings of the VFL. These are two sides entrenched in our game. These are two sides with histories and longevity of success in our game. However, they may define success. Carlton, they define success through premierships. Melbourne, they define their success through having great characters like Jim Stein and Neil Danaher. But enough about the past. Let's look at what happened on Saturday night. We go straight to the scoreboard because it was a close one. Carlton edging Melbourne 12-6, 78, 10-10, 70. Carlton, your winners here by 8 points at the G. We're going to have a look now at the scoreworm as a real up and down day ensued for both teams. So in the first quarter, Carlton run out strong, kick 4. Melbourne responded with 3 of their own. Melbourne just trailing by a couple of points at quarter time. Then second quarter, Melbourne really came out of the game, failed to fire out of the break. Carlton 2 goals to 3 points for Melbourne. Second half, Melbourne come back strong, come back hard. 3 goals for the Blues for Melbourne. And in the final quarter, Carlton just do enough to hold, just not only with goals, but with the points that they kick for Melbourne, kicking those points instead of those goals. We have another 3 goals for Carlton, so they go the final quarter 3-1. Melbourne go that final quarter 3-3. So again, the points just kill Melbourne. It wasn't even bad kicking there. Their kicking efficiency was 50-50, half goal, half point, but Carlton's was 2-1 odds. So 2 goals for every point Carlton kick, and that's going to win you a lot of games in the AFL, especially these low scoring games where, as I said, the score was 78-70. So games in that sort of that lower marks, or in the 70s, 80s, 90s, I think you've really got to take accuracy as a premium. Melbourne, you've kicked 2 of those goals in the final quarter and finish 5-1. I think, well, they're going to win. They'd finish, you take off 2 points, you add 2 more goals and they win. Better score in the 80s, and it just shows that, scores are a premium. When one team gets 20 scoring shots for 50% and the other team gets 18 scoring shots for 66% or 2/3, it just shows the premium of needing to kick goals. And I'm going to talk about the premium of needing to kick goals when I go into my player of the game, which I'm going to do right now. Because we have such a low scoring game, and I already said that goals are of a premium in this one. I'm going to go for someone who kicked a big number of goals for the context of the game for the winning side for Carlton, and that was Ashton Muir. He only had 67 fantasy, but I'm not worried about that. He kicks 4 goals, so he kicks one third of Carlton's overall goal tally for the evening, and that is key when you have a player who can do that for you. Cosy Pickett kicked half of Melbourne's. He finished with 5 for Melbourne, but losing effort for them. So Ashton Muir, his 4 goals stand up. Now the rest of his stats I'm not really going to get into too much. It was 11 touches, 9 kicks, 3 handballs, 4 marks, but again, that doesn't really matter at this point. It's a low scoring game, and if you're helping your team by kicking out not a big number of goals individually, but statistically kicking 33% of your team's goals is quite a look if you look through the history of the AFL, and that's why he's my player of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Fantasy doesn't merely mean how you perform, and you can have 1 kick and 1 goal and that wins. As you mentioned before, Aidan, Brisbane's big thing is about points, and points can win games. And that's in today's game of score pressure. And that's what Carlton did quite a bit as well. So, yeah, game 5, we're in game 3, and it equals to game 1 of the doubleheader. So, look, Carlton Melbourne go head-to-head at the MCG. Don't worry about playing finals. It's how to see a good game of football, and we did. It was a 40,869 saw these two support these two going head-to-head, and for Saturday night, look, it's not bad for Saturday night at the MCG. I think it's better than 20,000, I've got to say, on the Saturday night. So keep coming out and you see a good cracking game of football. Doesn't matter where you're on the ladder, you will see a good game. And support your team. 12-6, 78, 10-10, 70. 8-point victory. Well done, Carlton. Back on the winning list. Melbourne, good effort. Didn't give up at all. And it was close all game. And, score pressure does help, but it makes them more nervous. But very more happy for Carlton and their supporters to see a victory. Look, it doesn't look, I like to see these players to perform well and do well for the team. Always keep your heads up. Let's contest. But to wrap things up for this game, player of the game, Patrick Cripps. Now, the Carlton captain. I have not chosen him almost the all year. And he earns his spot. 29 disposals, 2 marks, 5 tackles, 104 for AFL Fantasy. With that 48% defensive half, 52% forward half. So it's almost for 50-50. Was that goal assist, 3 score involvements, score involvement, and a 415 metres game. So well done to the Carlton's captain, midfielder Patrick Cripps. Alright, I'll let Aidan go into the West. And off the stadium in Perth, West Coast Richmond Tigers.
Again, I really want to begin by just saying, why do we have this game on Saturday night? I understand we need to get a game in West Australia somewhere in the week, and they're an hour and a half to 2 hours behind the rest of the country, but you're serving me up on Saturday night of round 19. I'm gonna crucify Carlton and Melbourne for this too. Going into the round, Carlton and Melbourne were the 12th and 13th place side, and the other game, 18th playing 17th. That is the best the AFL can serve up on a Saturday night at crunch time. Thursday night's bad enough with Essendon hugging all of them, and thank God GWS was there. Friday night was a nice game, but Saturday night this week, absolutely dreadful by the AFL. Now the AFL says we hold back the second half of the schedule until mid-year so we can see who's where on the ladder. Well, when you release the schedule, West Coast has still only had 1 win, and Richmond had 2, and you think that that's the best option for a Saturday night. Let's have a look through this round. The AFL's on flame here, not the clubs just yet. But we have a look at round 19, the games we had available to us to put on the Saturday night. It was not a good look. We had Adelaide versus Gold Coast. That could have been Saturday night. We had Collingwood versus Fremantle. That could have been Saturday night. So there's definitely 2 options they could have used to replace it with, both of those games. I think Melbourne Carlton, I'm going to let off a little bit because I think Melbourne Carlton, as I said, a big historical game. Drew, as Ben said, drew a good crowd, 40,000. But West Coast in Richmond, round 19 Saturday night is not good enough by the AFL. But let's get into the game. It was realistically a one-way beatdown after quarter time. Quarter time was very close. West Coast 2 goals, Richmond 3 at quarter time, and then from there it is the Tigers singing their song. They are from Tigerland, they went west, and they are going back as the victors over West Coast by 49 points in the end here. Final score, West Coast 88-56, Richmond 69-105, and this is just telling of West Coast. It really is. You are playing the now 16th, but at the time the 17th place side, the one team who is above you on the ladder, and you lose by nearly 50. Okay, Richmond had a really good third quarter, but Richmond should not be having really good anything at any time this year. They played poorly a couple of weeks ago against Essendon. We've seen the lows of Richmond. Maybe now we're starting to see the highs of them. Maybe this was the beginning for them. And West Coast let it happen when they were placed 17 on the ladder. You can't hold much face if your best player, Harley Reid, is more interested in showboating to the crowd and getting in the face of opposition players and fans, as he's done all year, and you going around thinking this is acceptable. This is not acceptable. Harley Reid has had nearly 2 years in the AFL. It's got to get to a point where somebody has to tell him, stop, you are in charge of this team. We picked you with the number 1 pick. We're happy to move you if you can't get your head right, because you are the future of this club. We brought you in to be the future of this club, and you are going half football. If Harley Reid played more football, he could be Nick Dacos. He could genuinely drag West Coast to 5 or 6 wins every year on his own. And if he plays well, everyone else around him is going to play well. And then they might get, 8 wins for the year. And I tell you what, I'd much rather have a team that loses but wins 8 games than a team that's led by and wins 1 game so far this year against a really, really poor and really, really injured St Kilda side that week. So, West Coast, you've got some decisions to make. Harley Reid, you've got some heads to check. And be ready for next year. I will come hard at you next year because I've had enough of your games. Let's get to my player of the game. My player of the game for this one is Tim Taranto from Richmond. A real stellar game for him here. 124 AFL fantasy, 3 goals, 30 touches, 15 kicks, 15 handballs, 5 marks, and 4 tackles for the Tigers. Now one of the real mainstays of the Tigers as well, Tim Taranto. It's funny to think that he's now probably the last real guard from that premiership era, but nonetheless, he is my player of the game.
Yeah, so moving from what you're saying, but could have still have to call him a kid of Harley Reid. But look, I don't know where is West Coast. You can't, you're not connecting as one, and you can't. The codes give you a message to bring in, you got to bring pressure. You bring pressure together and, you bring connections. It's all about being in one culture, but I have not seen West Coast done that. Losing by 8 goals in front of a big sold-out crowd. I don't know, yes, I've tell you West Coast supporters, go and support your team. But support them because support them. It's fantastic. Yes, the 600 points plus under 100. And with the 44,252, it's like, wow. Like a few weeks back, it was almost a sold-out crowd that West Coast saying, yes, this will be an opportunity to see this again win. But, yes, West Coast paid their rivals of Fremantle, which we'll share that very soon. With Richmond will face Collingwood, and Richmond will be tested. But I gotta say right now, Richmond started well. They played together. They are connecting. They are rebuilding very quick. And they're doing it. They did like Hawthorn. Hawthorn rebuilt very quick. Adelaide took a bit more longer. But what Adelaide did compared to West Coast, Adelaide stayed together. Yes, a legend. But when you are I gotta say now, West Coast, I gotta say, if you do not show up against Fremantle, you're going to look an idiot in the Western Derby. And I'm surely that Fremantle will play smart, and West Coast do not face hard, because you're going to be in deep trouble. All right, player of the game, moving forward into the last these 3 games, because I can't wait to share with them. Jacob Hobber, mate, well done. there were some hard choices for Aiden's your choice as well. 33 disposals, 6 marks, 4 tackles, 2 goals, 127 AFL fantasy, 49% defensive half, 51% forward half, 1 goal assist, 6 score involvements, and 432 metres gained. So another great effort and performance from Jacob Hobart. Well done to you, Star. Well done running in that midfield in the West. Not easy to do. That's man, it's West Coast or Fremantle. I think Fremantle are going to be more the harder team to play in the West over West Coast. It's like a walk in the park by West Coast. And 20 years ago, I've got to say this right now, just to be polite, I dislike West Coast because certain players. Nothing to do with... Alright, moving forward. Oh wow, 3 more games. And I gotta say, there were some really good games. And I'll share... We got 3 games, 3 ticket games for Super Sunday. These were super. I reckon this was the best 3 Sunday games, I gotta say. Yes, one took care of the final quarter. One was just anyone's game and it was a nervous pack. And then the last game was a bit scruffy. Bales all cleared by one team. So I'll share game 1 right now, heading to GMHBA Stadium, Geelong, St Kilda. Now, this is a really good effort, and yes, St Kilda have not yet to complete a medal win down at Geelong. But I gotta say, 3 quarters of football, showing that they are playing alright. They're better than the bottom team, I've got to say. And really good effort. 17-11, 113, 12-10, 82. So losing by 5 goals over 10 goals. Yes, when you score 82 points and 80 plus points in Geelong, not 50 or 60, is actually an effort for St Kilda. Yes, they keep coming. And oh goodness, I watched some of that game. Yes, Geelong came out on top, but St Kilda keep coming. And they came hard. Final score 29,985 is a good crowd for Sunday, and it's almost a sold out crowd as well. So I gotta say, it's a really good effort. Look, Geelong might have win, bagging down in Geelong, playing their sexy football, and it worked. It worked very, very messy in that second half, and they'll take the win. You know, when you go down at Marble, St Kilda play better. When you play down at Geelong play better. So it opens up so much. Well, Geelong will tackle North Melbourne, and then St Kilda face Melbourne also. Both play at Marble Stadium at different times. Well, this player, I've got to say, he's changed the game. Hopefully he will stay at St Kilda because he's got so much future. He's also from Adelaide as well, and he's been related from Port Adelaide and then some from St Kilda, if you want to share that, if you know what I'm saying, Aiden. But Nasser Miller from St Kilda's the defender star. My game that he chose, why did I choose this one over a Jeremy Cameron? You know, yes, you can kick bags of goals, but a kid like him and performing like that, it's pretty good effort. 36 disposals, 8 marks, 4 tackles, 2 goals. 151 AFL fans, 54% defensive half, 46 forward half, 2 goal assists, 9 score involvement, and a 642 metres game. So well done to Nasser Miller from the St Kilda midfielder or defender. He can play all over, and to include 2 goal assists and 9 score involvement, overall it's 11 score involvement and 600 plus metres with 151. Yeah, it's not about the fans points, but you score 30 plus disposals, almost under 10 mark, almost 5. Half of that was 2 goals. Pretty good effort down in Geelong. And when you perform like that, St Kilda are looking really good. So well done to the St Kilda's defensive star. Aiden, over to you. It's in the Saints.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. This is a real interesting game because St Kilda did sneak past Geelong in the early part of the season, and they've done that the last couple of years when they've had that early game in their season series down at Marvel Stadium. We know Geelong, traditionally maybe a little bit of a slower starting team in that first month of football, just trying to balance out how many young fellas they play against, how many veterans. Geelong are really in a group now, and then down at the category, there's always a definite advantage for Geelong. Not just home ground advantage, much, but just being in that, that community and that area of Melbourne, Geelong are really the only country team. Well, they are the only country team in the AFL. All the other teams are in the cities or in dense population areas. Like I could say Gold Coast are a country team, but Gold Coast is more of a holiday destination than a country town that Geelong is. And when you have a whole town pulling for you, it really helps. You go out on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, you go to the Cattery, the new and improved Cattery, and you have that whole town pulling for you, and it makes such a difference. And I think that Geelong, they really relish that and they really enjoy that. 5 goal, you can look at it and say St Kilda got beat by 5 goal, but I'm not looking at that game and saying St Kilda got beat by 5 goal. I'm looking at that game and saying that St Kilda are a team who, looking at where they are on the ladder, I think that and the way that they played that game as well. Again, like I said last week about when they played Sydney, is there were moments where they were right in the contest, and there were moments where you just felt like they could take the momentum away, especially in the late first quarter, early second quarter of this game before the Cats really started to control the game and play at their tempo. It's not a game where I look at it and say 5 goal is bad here. I think that 5 goal, that's Jeremy Cameron's weekly dose. So to lose to Jeremy Cameron's 5 goals, Jeremy Cameron kicks 5 goals. What? That's a pretty standard Jeremy Cameron output. So you take that out of the game, you take away Jeremy Cameron, and guess what? You've got a draw. But it just shows the level of the elite forwards in the AFL that Jeremy Cameron, his scoreline is the difference between a draw and the final margin of this game. So St Kilda had control over everybody else apart from Jeremy Cameron, and if they took him away, it's a completely different game. It's still a win for the Cats. They did play a really, really sexy brand of footy in the second half and took advantage of mismatches that they saw developing earlier on. For St Kilda, this is not really one to be ashamed of too much. I think that these are the games where you've got a young side, you've got a building side. You learn from this. You've got some great young players. Obviously, you've got Nasiah, you've got Alex Taru, you've got other guys that will come back in as well. But you're building. You've got a lot of guys who are probably grade as like B minus level guys, but you're also developing guys who I think could be in that A tier or close to that S tier level of AFL players come their prime. But we're going to get into my player of the game now. I'm actually going to have to give 2 player of the games here because I really can't split the games these 2 young fellas played in this one. So my first one for my player of the game, I'm going to have to go to Nasiah Wanganeen-Malera from St Kilda. Really just a great game from him again. So he finished 151 AFL fantasy, 2 goals, 36 touches, 26 kicks, 10 handballs, 8 marks and 4 tackles. So Nasiah, a very good game on his effort. Unfortunately, St Kilda just not going with where he's at as a football player. I think he's, as much as I'd love for him to stay at St Kilda, I think he's above St Kilda now. I don't think that staying at St Kilda does him any favours, and I don't think it does St Kilda any favours either. Just holds him back. Second player of the game, I have this one with Sean Manor. 144 AFL fantasy, 3 goals, 24 touches, 15 kicks, 9 handballs, 6 marks and 11 tackles. So Sean Manor has been someone who's been on my radar the last couple of weeks, especially since the after the Cats bye in that second half of the season when that started. Really improved his load in terms of his scoring output, his ball getting, instead of Geelong being sort of Jeremy Cameron and nobody else, I think they've looked at him and said that we've got a real prospect here that we should be putting more load on. So well done to him for taking that chance at the Cattery and showing that he is good enough to run alongside Jeremy Cameron.
Yeah, so 2 more games just to keep it moving, and oh my goodness, Aiden, if you're ready, I'll let you share what I'm going to say an epic MCG Classic, Collingwood and Fremantle for Game 8, Game 2, Super Sunday Football.
Here we go. A couple of years ago, I would have loved this result. I really would have, that, Ben. But I've gone off Fremantle. I've gone off of them. So I'm going to tell, before I get into this game, I want to tell everyone a story here. I want to say that, come into last year when Fremantle choked that one against Essendon, I was about ready to put the Fox box remote through the TV. And so I just said, I've had enough of them. I can't do this anymore with him. I go out to a family dinner with my uncle from Canberra. He's a massive Hawthorn fan and he's very much into his football and his ideas about supporting a side and being loyal to a side. And I may or may not have informed him that I would no longer be going for Fremantle. And I left it up to his better judgment. And he said that anything that Fremantle does between now and Tasmania coming in, I cannot claim. And my idea was, that's fine. I want them to suffer. They've suffered while I was watching them. They can suffer again. So this result, it makes me look a bit stupid here. It really does. But we get into the game now. It's MCG Footy Round 19, Collingwood and Fremantle. This was a great game. Probably one of the games of the year. Definitely the game of the round. Final scores in this one: Collingwood 11-12-78, Fremantle 12-7, 79. Fremantle find the way to win in the end. We're going to look at the quarter by quarter summaries. First quarter, Fremantle kick a good quarter, 4-2 to 3-2 in the first quarter going into the break. Second quarter, Collingwood kick 5, Fremantle kick 3. Advantage goes back the way of Collingwood. Go out of the main break into the third quarter now. 1 goal apiece, so the advantage still remains with Collingwood. And then in the final quarter, Collingwood kick 2 goals, 4. Fremantle kick 4 goals, 2. To seal a memorable comeback and a real special win for the Purple Haze. You know, this is the game I talked about earlier when I talked about that first place being up for grabs. Now I think that going in, I think everyone thought Collingwood could cruise this one, but now that we'll have a look at the ladder sometime later on. Collingwood have really opened up first place with this loss. They're only a half game ahead of Brisbane now. Crows, they do beat Gold Coast. We'll get to that in a second. Crows, with that win, now go to a game, plus they have percentage over Collingwood. So if there's a situation where Collingwood and Brisbane both were to lose a game, Adelaide will jump both of them with another win. We'll get to that later on. My player of the game in this one. Again, another low-scoring game, so scores at a premium for this one. And it has to be Patrick Voss from Fremantle, who kicked 6 goals for the Dockers, and Fremantle only kicked 12, so he's kicked 50% of Fremantle's goals there has Patrick Voss from Fremantle. He is my player of the game in this one.
Thank you. So, now I can say, yes, the player of the round. And what a game this was. Now, I watched the last few minutes. It was half time of the Crows and the Suns, and I got to watch this game. I was with Mum and Dad, and when Fremantle got that mark, it was a high, I think, tackle. And I think it was... And that's how defence works. Defence does win game. If it's soccer, it's at rugby, is it American football, it's basketball, it doesn't matter. Fremantle stopped a victory for Collingwood, and they did it. Collingwood has done that twice. Yes, they play a response better, but goodness, 62,198. Fremantle more than, I'm going to say, Collingwood. This was a big road win. It doesn't matter you win by 100 or 99 or 1,000 points. But winning by 1 point, I'm going to say that Collingwood had opportunities to win the game. 11-12, 78, 12-7, 79. 1 point victories to Fremantle. And it's a well-earned travel victory back to, over Collingwood, but back home in the Western Derby, 54th Western Derby, which they'll have so much confident coming over that win. And I will move on from that because you can't do that, especially in a ride, or it's a different kettle of fish. Collingwood will take on Richmond. Surely it's not just a walk in the park. Richmond are looking very, very good. And don't face, if Collingwood absolutely scared light of everyone in this competition, that opens up for Brisbane and Adelaide and even Geelong to go in that, and Geelong and then Collingwood just drop. So opens up so much. That's why it's so tight, this competition. It's so exciting. So look, well done to Collingwood. And I got this wrong. I didn't care about that wrong. Could not care less about that part. I really wanted, that was a victory for us. As no, I'm a Crows support, Adelaide Crows supporter, so it opens up the gate so much. But best of luck for Fremantle. Yes, you take on your rivals, West Coast, play Fremantle football, and Collingwood, all the best against Richmond. Now, I'm going to change my player of the game. Yes, it was originally Nick Dacos. Now, I don't know if I should actually change my player of the game, but they can't so pass the sack of the same player and Patrick Voss. Now, Voss is a pretty common name in the AFL in the olden 2000s, now in modern football. But well done on your 6 goals. Really, the 12 touches with 5 marks, 2 tackles. Now, the 93 fancy doesn't really mean much in a big way, but 6 goals, 1 point wins the game. So, but all went forward, no defence, and 86% scoring accuracy, 8 score involvement. So that's a huge, 370 metres game, 119 plus minutes and 11 seconds on time ground. So it opens up that Fremantle looking very good with this forward star. So well done to Patrick Voss. So, wow. The final game, thank you so much for this enjoyable long episode. And yes, we joined together. So let me just straight into it, sweet and throat. Look, Gold Coast, what's happened? The worst to come to Adelaide, to scoreless in front of 44,249. A victory that opens up so much. Well done. Before I slowly into my thoughts, 16, 11, 107, 6, 10, 46. Yes, I mentioned 44,249 is such a matter more better than the Adelaide Melbourne game, which I saw. What a game that was. A bit more different style. But now my thoughts for this game. Now, why did I say wow? And it's defensive work. That's what we have struggled early in the year to now. Because it's 9 out good teams play good offense. But it's all about defense. So defense wins games from not scoring goals. But when we play smart offense, 3 tools, LA have, that no one else has, win games. So you have, some of those small hard forwards like Isaac Macon, amazing against his former club. Alex Newbullen dominated not just by goals, but pressure. And he's shown that we've done so well in the off-season to bring these talents in. And that's what Adelaide pros wanted. And there's been Reagan and Alex Newbullen brought over as close supporters. So to play in a clutch time Adelaide Oval, they loved him. We all love these. And Isaac Cummings, can't go wrong with that. But anyway, this is maybe the worst half I've seen by Gold Coast. They did not bring that game pressure like they did against Collingwood. We knew that how good Gold Coast were coming into that game. But they did well against Collingwood. But they went down to their beginning days almost under. Yes, this may be a lesson learned. But coach, yes, improved Gold Coast. You can't look to playing finals this year. I think next year, okay. I would love to see Gold Coast play finals. It'd be awesome. But you can't lose by 10 goals. Not this time of year. You come to Adelaide, you still need to bring that football. It makes it more harder. And it was a hard game to tip, in my advice. But I chose Adelaide because it was a really good response back last time. Moving forward from that. Look, I didn't see this happening, and no one really saw this first half style of football Adelaide did. I watched each quarter, and I will go break down, look out for some special early edition episodes, which will be out very soon, with 3 of the games I actually enjoyed watching. Yes, the game got started slowly, but after that first 2 goals, from amazing from Tex, open goal from Riley Filfor, it really opens up. But moving forward to who's playing which next week we'll share very, very soon. But Gold Coast will take on their rivals Brisbane, which I think could be an interesting key clash at People's First. Then as well, obvious Showdown 54, Adelaide will take on Port Adelaide, which should hopefully be a good showdown like we've done in the last couple of times. We have so many rivals, showdowns, derbies, what around. That will be interesting. But moving Alex Newbullen as my part of the game, you can't go wrong with his forward. 31 disposals, 7 marks, 4 tackles, 3 goals, 135 AFL fantasy, 57% defensive half, 43% forward half, 2 goal assists, 12 score involvements, 539 metres game. Alex Newbullen, well done. You are a good athlete. Keep bringing the Crows forward, mate, because you're awesome. Aiden, share the last game for round 19, Crows Suns.
Here we go. Adelaide and Gold Coast at Adelaide Oval. Now, Adelaide Oval, normally probably one of the more, I guess you'd call even grounds, a lot more even contest than most other grounds. Definitely, not really much reason for a team to struggle at Adelaide Oval. It's not particularly cold, it's not particularly windy, it's well protected from the weather unless it comes over. There was no weather Sunday night either, so there was really no reason for Gold Coast to put up 4 points in a half of football. Yep, 4 points in pretty decent weather at Adelaide Oval. That is Gold Coast, what Gold Coast served up to us. And the Crows just blew them away with that. They just saw nothing there for Gold Coast. We can just run around and have some fun, use that first half pretty much as a training session at the end when Gold Coast kind of ran out of bodies. But it was the way that the Crows constructed their ball movement from back to forward, across, switching. Everything sort of came together. Ben, you mentioned Alex Neil-Bullen, a lot of score involvement as well. So using a lot of links in the chain to get forward, to get goals. And I think that's what makes Adelaide so dangerous come the end of the year. Is if they do get a run, they're going to line break and then they're going to get links in the chain and they're going to be hard to stop. You know, they've done it previously earlier in the year that we see it. We really see it for the first time against a team who's going to be playing finals in Gold Coast. But this is a team, I mean, we saw it as well against the Doggies as well. So we've seen it against top opposition. Then now we're starting to see it really hit the gas as we get toward finals time. That's concerning. If I'm a top 8 team, if I'm a top 4 team, I'm looking at the Crows right now and being like, they may be the team to beat come September. They've hit their form at the right time. Brisbane, always a little bit here and there. They can have big days, they can have bad days. Collingwood on the blocks a little bit, but Adelaide right now I think are the team to beat going into finals. I think Gold Coast definitely will still make it in the end, but I think for them, their first final experience, unless they get a favourable draw, they're going to be playing away. Most likely is going to be them playing and making up the numbers, much like Carlton did last year against Brisbane, and we saw how that panned out. Now, photo of the game, I don't really have to do too much into it here. Ben's already told you everything about this player as Alex Neil-Bullen.
Okay, well, basically the same stats, but thank you. Yeah, so, you know, the style football, like you mentioned of that, but let's move forward to 19. I can't believe I can say this right now, Aiden. 4 more rounds to go. I think, and someone has said from a YouTuber, I think this was a quicker year than last year. Let's just keep it that. So, 4 rounds to go. We have 4 previews, 4 results. Or let's just say preview results, etc. We same routine. We got Rivalry Round. Oh, that's all. Doesn't matter if it's a Hawks, Carlton, Bombers, Bulldogs. They're not vital. The Tigers and the Pies, they're vital. Perfect time for them. See how they first. But goodbye 19. Hello round 20. 4 rounds to go before we got the Showdown, we've got the Western Derby, we've got the Sydney Derby, we've got the Q Clash, weekend of rivals all over. Aiden and I will share Let's Drive into round 20 previews. So look, Carlton be very lucky to find another game. Hawthorn are clearly should be playing a lot of prior times, and I hope that they'll get into that. But I'm going with Hawthorn, and they'll win by 5 to 6 goals. I think Carlton will bring that more better, hopefully bring in that contest. MCG, prime time, they need to bring that good pressure, but Hawthorn will win this game.
Yeah, interesting call there, Ben. I was just having a look at how the draw's shaking out. This one down at MCG between Hawthorn and Carlton. I think if there's going to be an upset here, I think it's going to be this one. I actually think that this could be the game we see an upset this round. You know, Carlton come off, you know, a real fire-starting win for the Blues. New players getting involved, Ashton Muir getting involved, as well as Cripps. Their forwards are a little bit all over the place still. Not much from Curnow the last recent weeks, but, you know, maybe a big team is what he needs to get back in the game. And I think that, you know, while they are starting quite outside favourites, I think that they're going to be up for it on Thursday night, and I'm going to take the Blues here.
Awesome. Now, I do apologise in the background days. It is winter here in Adelaide, all around Australia. So wherever you listen around the globe, this is winter here in Adelaide. It is bucking down with rain. Also, we'll be training Aussie football, so an inclusive for Kenilworth. So there'll be some fun being out of the park this afternoon. So thank you so much for listening for this. So game 2, what I'll do, Aiden, I'll go through all the rest of my games and then I'll let you share yours. Right? Yep. Okay. So Essendon, Western Bulldogs, lots of injuries. Can't say too much for the Bombers. Hopefully we'll have a contest. Bulldogs, too good, and they'll win. I'm going to be a bit nicer here. I'm going to say about 4 goals. Well, game 3, we got the 31st Sydney Derby. That's it. Giants, Swans, head to head. Giants to win this game. I think this will be a better ride back. Sydney got it at their home ground. I think the Giants, they look a little bit better, a bit in above of the ladder. I think they'll want to again continue this momentum winning. And it's at home, so they'll win that game. Alright, the next one, Q Clash. They're 19th Q Clash, almost the 20th. So there's interesting rivals here. Gold Coast versus Brisbane. Now, yes, disappointing from Gold Coast. Yes, they'll bounce back on the Gold Coast. Brisbane, and I think it'll be a very close one. I'm going to say 8 points. And I tell you right now, I don't know who the best on ground medals are named for. I don't really get into that a big way, so I'm not going to worry about best on grounds because that goes through my head. The 61st Western Derby. Now, I've got to say West Coast in the fight, but Fremantle, they'll win by 70 points. Being very harsh, but I do not see West Coast in being a hush in this game, and I'm going to say that nicely there. Alright, game 6. We got the Roos and the Cats. Setsy Geelong, and they will say 40 points. We go to game 7. This is that really I think should be the game of the round, but I think it's not, because I think Port Adelaide, they'll be in that contest. Crows, the mighty Crows, while it should be a good game, I'm going for them, and I think it's going to be about a 25-point win for the Crows. The Tigers and the Pies. Now, yes, I'm going with Collingwood with this game, and we've got the last 2 games, so this game should be a comfortable win for Collingwood, but the last 2 games been struggling, and it was less than a goal. So 6 and minus. So one's me on the Gold Coast, one's me at the G. That Collingwood's back at the G. Should be a good game. Richmond will have some momentum coming into this game. So hopefully they'll bring some good pressure and really bring it to Collingwood. But Collingwood by, I'm going to say, a nice 15-point win. Now, Matt, I know it won't be 15 points, but I'm just going to say that to as Richmond have been mentioned that. And it's the Saint and the D's. I'm going for St Kilda. Last time these two met was in Alice Springs at Trigger Park. And I went for Melbourne and they got absolute bump and it was points. Lost the game. And you can't be scoring 7 goals to 14. And I know the score very well because I watched the game. So, St Kilda, and they're going to win by 25 points. So, that's it. That's my tips and my restrictions. Aiden, take it away from game 2.
Alright, game 2 is, as Ben, you said, Essendon versus Western Bulldogs. Essendon are just kind of, they're flat on the canvas at this point. They're down for a 10 count at this point. You know, they've not got any showing any signs of coming back into this GWS, Gold Coast, Fremantle, all above Western Bulldogs in that finals race. 3 teams going for 4 spots. Bulldogs need to win this. I think they know they need to win this to keep their destiny in their own hands. So Bulldogs will win in that one. They'll probably win quite badly. I think they'll take this one by 60 or 70 or odd. Now we go to GWS versus Sydney, and now I don't think either team winning here would be an upset like a Carlton over Hawthorn would be. I think that GWS at home they do go in as betting line favourites, but Sydney are very close underdog here. That being said, Sydney we know have had the choke chain around the Giants' neck in the Sydney derbies the last couple of years. So I think that continues, and I think Sydney does win this one. We're going to keep going down the list now. We start with the Q Clash up on the Gold Coast at People's First Stadium. Again, much like the Sydney Derby, Brisbane are coming in as slight favourites, but Gold Coast short odds as the underdog again. You know, Brisbane probably are the better side, but I just think that, you know, and Gold Coast, you know, they're looking for a response. It is a question of, you know, how much Gold Coast want to play finals. I mean, they do have that extra game, but it's always nice to be able to control your own destiny instead of putting it in the hands of the other side. It's happened too often in football where teams have got lazy at the back end and put their fate in other teams, and it hasn't gone too well for them. So, I mean, I look at Gold Coast and I think how great it would be if Gold Coast win, but I think Brisbane gets over the line here. I think it's going to be close. It's probably going to be the game of the round. It's going to be close. I think Brisbane wins by under a goal. Then we have the true derby, the West Australian derby. West Coast have found a new way to hit rock bottom. But losing to nearly 50 points by a team placing one position above you on the ladder is absolutely horrendous. It's absolutely disgusting. Fremantle are one of those teams I mentioned earlier who are in that mixed control of the destiny for a second 4 spot in the finals. I think this is going to get really ugly. I think I could actually see a 300 spot here, a three blocker here. Fremantle are going to cross 100 points and absolutely pummel West Coast in the end here. So Dockers winning by over 100. North versus Geelong, I think Geelong, much better team. We're going to get through these pretty quickly now. Most of the main derbies are over. Geelong, much better team than North Melbourne. North Melbourne, as much as they're going to be in the game, I think they're going to be in the game for, again, a good quarter and a half, maybe even a good half. Geelong's just going to show their skill, and that's going to be it. North Melbourne just not having the ability to go with them, tactically at this point. There's not really a lot the North can do to stop Geelong. So Geelong win that one, I'll say, by 6-7 goals. Showdown is going to be quite interesting. I think that Port Adelaide, are going to be up for the fight. They always are. This is one of those games where you look at it and go, well, if things go so-and-so way early, then this game goes in different directions. But I think this one, Adelaide are going to look up at that ladder and be, we're in the mix here. We're going to keep going. Momentum's on our side and we're going to win. Adelaide going to win this one by, what's a nice number? Let's go Adelaide win by 5 goals in the end here. Then on the Sunday, Richmond and the Pies. I think Richmond they've had a good run. They've had a really good run the last couple of weeks, even when they played horribly. But I just think that Collingwood's going to get back on track here. They've had a really bad start against Gold Coast. Nearly came back in that one. Couldn't close. Fremantle was a dicey game. Was up and down all day. Couldn't take advantage on the scoreboard when they had their opportunities. I think Collingwood rectify that. I think they wreck Richmond as well. So Collingwood are going to win. I think they're going to win in the range of 80 to 85 points. So Richmond back to the drawing board for you, but your young talent is definitely right there. Going to our final game now, it is between St Kilda and Melbourne. I think that this one, St Kilda have shown me a little bit this year, but I think Melbourne's shown me just enough more. Cozzy Pickett's really come into his own this year, and I think that the number of times Cozzy Pickett's been, probably in the Brownlow votes, probably in the back of the heads of the coaches' votes, people voting on AFL awards. I think that Cozzy Pickett is the deciding factor in this one. I think Cozzy kicks another 5 here, and I think Melbourne win by 3 goals.
Okay, yeah, that's all right. And we all love our upsets. We'll see what happens in round 20. And, well, other than that's a wrap. And that is it. Thank you so much for this very amazing episode. And we've had some heated moments. And I've got to say, it's going to be absolute ripping. Hope you will all enjoy it as much. Aidan and I will also enjoy listening. Alright, thank you so much. There was early special episodes out coming soon your way. So I gotta say, listen to all that. We'll have this out. We have the Australian Sport Edition show. I'll listen to some classic moments of that for the final series of the netball and what a season of NBL Central as well. So with all of that, one more thing is the Aussie Extra SNFL, which we have the grand final, women's grand final to come, to listen to all of that as well, the men's semifinal. What some classic moments to that. So much, and coming soon your way is the AFLW, so stay tuned for all of that action as well. Maybe some outside of the Woods show as well, the fun quizzes, and there's so much to cover, so much to come. Thank you so much. BJ Show's out. Peace. Bye for now.